should be live. I'm going to give it a second to populate. We can have some fun. So I want to say off the rip, I appreciate everybody participating in the poll this week. I know that probably some people don't value the polls or probably understand why you do them, but I guess to me it's a great way for me to, I guess in some sense, try to understand the average viewer. I mean, obviously I don't expect everybody to complete the poll, but it's good to know that people want this, that people care about it, and we'll get better on it over the future. I think I've just been kind of starting off with the decks I know, the decks that are easy for me to cover, and then my hope is as we go into the future, we can either cover new decks that haven't been released on the channel yet, or new decks for myself. You know, there's a lot of great options as far as what can be done, and my hope is that we get to explore that more. But tonight, we're gonna finish up two of, I guess probably the last two decks that I would say I have in my main and test box that we haven't covered yet. Mainly in the completionist sense of wanting to finish them all and to push ourselves forward, right, as we get even closer to Spider-Man content. This will be the last playtest episode in our Edge of Eternity's content. I've had a ton of fun with this set. I hope that you guys have had fun with this set. But as of the week of 9/15, September 15th, we're going to be starting Spider-Man content. I'm so excited to start getting that out to y'all. There's some really fun commanders that I'm excited to try out. There's some really fun support I'm excited to mess around with for a lot of other commanders. So I've been working on that hard in the background. But tonight we're taking a look at Alela, Artful Provocateur. This deck for me has gone through a lot of mixed changes. It started off as a fairly enchantment heavy deck. It switched to being a pretty artifact heavy deck, and then as of late, it's kind of cycled back to being more of an enchantment heavy deck. It's a deck I really enjoy. It's got some fun aspects to it, and I've got some ideas I'll share as far as where I want it to go for the future. And then the second deck we're going to cover tonight is a deck that probably won't see much love here for the Spider-Man cycle, but of course we've already seen at least one new shrine for the Avatar set. So I'm very excited for Go-Shintai. It's going to get some great support in that set. We'll be covering it, and I'll be doing some updates for my personal list as well. But my thought here is, I think we're probably expecting, I would guess, 4 to 5 new shrines. So my thought is we could still make the deck better, or continue to test the deck outside of those 4 or 5 new shrines to just keep the ideas rolling, and we'll cover that one second. But first, let's start with Alela. And in the more recent version of this list, I kind of chose to focus on these enchantments that flash in, enchant a creature, and most of the time they either give them a small debuff, but most of the time it's just having them lose all their abilities. This is, to me, a really fun idea for removal, locking people's commanders or things like that down with no abilities, and they count as an enchantment cast for Alela's ability. But I think as I move forward with Alela, I think this is a deck that probably desires a little bit more, I don't want to say stacks, because that's not exactly my goal, but I would like to add more ways to slow your opponents down. My thought is things like Or of Silence. We are playing Blind Obedience, Authority of the Consuls. My thought is more things that shut down the spells that could be played, or things like Rest in Peace. I'm not wanting to go full stacks with Alela, but I do want to start adding a bit more to it, just to see if it can really affect my game plan. I was really looking at these lands from Edge of Eternities, the planet lands, because I think this is a deck that can really well station these up. Right, Alela giving the buffs, and we're playing a lot of buff enchantments. I feel like these are lands we can turn on pretty quickly. I guess the question just becomes, what value do they give us? I think Secundi makes a ton of sense because you can sack those fairies and draw cards. To me, this seems huge, because I think the reason in this deck you play so many of the coastal piracies, reconnaissance missions, is because you want to keep filling your hand up with things to play, and I feel like the Secundi makes so much sense up that vein. Adagi, I think, makes a ton of sense because it can give you copies of some of your really key enchantments. Although to note, we are playing things like Mirror Maid and Court of Vantress and Estrid's Invocation to copy our enchantments. Um, but I feel like there could be more to be done with that, right? And so I think that's what I kind of like of the idea of Adagia is to add more of that value there. But I think the goal of the deck is just to add some more enchantments. I'm really enjoying the enchantment vein of Alela. I mean, obviously, we're going to continue to play artifacts. Some of our best mana rocks are artifacts. I really enjoyed things like Strixhaven Stadium in the deck. I haven't really seen Bolus's Citadel yet, but I put it in there to try. But just sneaking into bracket 3, only playing 3 game changers. I don't really have any 2-card combos that I know of, and we're just trying to have some fun, make fairies, right, and take over the game plan. If you're watching, drop your comments in the chat. Talk to me in the chat. I'd love to talk with you. As much as I would love to talk to you for the next 90 minutes uninterrupted, I would also like to talk to you, and I'd love to hear what you think. But let's get into our first one here. Looking at a 4-lander. Sorry, that's 5. I can count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5-lander with Felwar Stone and Estrids. This is a interesting start, right? You have the Felwar, meaning we can hopefully get Alela down on turn 3. And then Estrids is an interesting copy enchantment, right? It comes in as a copy of enchantment and gives itself the ability to blink itself on your upkeep so that you can change which it comes in attached to. Obviously, we need another enchantment for Estrids to copy, as it cannot copy Felwar Stone. But with having all of our mana in our hand, hopefully that means we're going to draw into some gas, right, to get the party started. And we start off with a half-decent one in Black Market Connections. Black Market Connections is great. It can be draw. It can be mana acceleration with the treasures, right? There's a lot of interesting options there. I think I'd probably just go right into the Felwar Stone this turn. And then turn 3, we draw Utter Insignificance. One of those flash lockdown enchantments we talked about. Does also gives you the option to exile the enchanted creature, which is kind of fun as well. But I think it's probably just get Alela down, right? So much of this deck relies on you getting Alela down and getting it started. So, I mean, I think that makes the most sense. Moved on to working on my Alania deck instead. Alania is so much fun. It's one that I want to bring back for the channel pretty soon. Alania was probably one of my favorite Bloomburrow commanders we built for the channel for all of the Bloomburrow content cycle. I think it's a ton of fun. It's a great spells commander, and I think it's just wacky with what it can do. I mean, obviously, I feel like people are always going to look to things like Veyron or Vivi now because of how powerful they are. But I think Alania just opens up a ton of power out of nowhere that people don't really think about, because I can think of a list, a very, very big list of spells that I would happily let someone else draw a card to get a copy of, and it's not even just, if I recall correctly, and you can let me know if I'm wrong, Elotopian, it's not just sorceries, right? It's that first instant and sorcery, right? You cast each turn that you can copy. So you're not just getting the value once, you're getting the value multiple times. And I think probably what scares people away is that Alani is 5 mana, but man, we're in a format where 5 mana is not hard to get to, and it's not hard to get on board and get working, especially in something like bracket 3, if that's where you want it to go. In bracket 4, obviously there'll always be competition, but I have been known to love a commander like Ovika, which is 7 mana. I've built a bracket 4 deck for it, and the thing can absolutely plaster, Phyrexian goblins on the battlefield. That's right. It is instant sorcery and otter creature. I forgot that the otter creature was included in that. But I need to get back to Alania soon. It's one I had in my pile for Edge of Eternities, and I just didn't get around to it with some of the other stuff I wanted to cover. But I think I want to get around to it before the end of the year, because most of the time, for anyone who hasn't been at the channel long, I try at the end of the year to go back and do a bunch of old favorites and try to, update a bunch of decks and things like that. So I'll probably do that again this year. So it's definitely on the list for that, because it's a deck I love. Bloomburrow, I feel like I could go back and cover all of Bloomburrow. I loved the set. It was a ton of fun, and I'd happily go back again. Usually build all my decks at bracket 2. Yeah, bracket 2, I think I much prefer bracket 3, but I think bracket 2 is really interesting because it opens up a different level of momentum. I think if any of you guys play limited, right? Like, limited is such an interesting play for most people because you get used to the massive momentum swings of Commander, and you play things like Limited, and it's just a whole different world. And I kind of feel that way about Bracket too. You don't have as many of the out of nowhere, well, as out of nowhere, momentum swings, in my opinion. And you're not playing into as many of the combos and stuff that get valued right as you go up the bracket chain. But I am kind of let down that we didn't get an Outer Precon for Bloomborough. I would have really enjoyed more of the tribes getting some more support in a Precon, especially ones that aren't as popular. But I guess beggars can't be choosers, right? And I loved getting all the support we got out of Bloomborough. So here with 5 mana, I mean, I can think of a couple lines. I mean, obviously, I love Intangible Virtue. It's a card in this deck that I think makes a ton of sense, giving them vigilance, allowing them to attack and block. I mean, you could go with Estrids to copy it, or we can go with Black Market for the card draw and all that. I think it's Black Market, at least in my head, for this turn. And maybe, maybe my mind's changed otherwise, but I don't know. I still think probably Black Market makes the most sense, even if we only just use one of the three. I try not to do all three because I think it's a little crazy to go 6 life deep. But I will say that Alela can help you with going 6 life deep, because if you can get her to be, of course, bigger, then you're gaining a life back. Play the 2, get the 2 fairies, have Alela hit in this turn since she came in last turn. You can get a couple of that life back that you're probably going to spend next turn on the connections. And we move on into the next turn. 6 mana. I'll probably take what? The card. I don't think I need the treasure. I guess I could take the shapeshifter for the fairy, but I think I'm okay with just the card since we did gain, 2 life last turn. Flawless is a great draw, right? Protecting our board. I think I like Estrids as a copy of Intangible Virtue here, just to buff the fairies a little bit more. I would probably just hold up Utter Insignificance. We could flash it in. There's no need to do this at sorcery speed. And we have the Flawless. We have a really nice way to get that. And this type of removal works really well with something in Call of Heliod's Generosity, which can bring the enchantments back on top of your library. So you enchant something, it dies, or maybe it's somebody's commander and they try to get it off the battlefield, it goes to the graveyard. Well, Heliod's can help us get it back. Mainly play with people using precons or update precons. Then that's great. It's great that you enjoy that level of play. I think what creates some of the most unfortunate games of Commander is when you get into games where people aren't always matching up what they want to play with what other people have, and it creates some really feel bad situations. With I played a couple games this last Friday night against a player who literally only had a precon, and I'll be honest, a lot of my bracket 3 decks were just not tuned to have what I would call a fair game with a bracket 2 deck, and so it was tough. I tried my best, to match those games, and I think I did an okay job. I got pretty much mana screwed 2 out of the 3 games, so that that helps. But it's important to play the brackets in the system you want to play and enjoy it, and make your intentions clear when you play with people you don't know, so that everybody enjoys the game and that you don't, feel bait and switched or things like that, when you get into those games. Bloomborough could have had a precon for each animal and they would have sold like crazy. Exactly. I think probably it's one of those sets that could have had 10 precons, but I don't want the precons because I want the precons necessarily. That sounds odd. I want the precons because I want the dedicated support for the tribe. I want the reprints, right? Like those are the things I value the precon more than the precon itself. That I don't know that makes sense logically. But here, you have some great attacks, right? You got your fairies being 4/3s, right? Because of the 2 intangible virtues. Take the attack. I'm going to hold up the Flawless and the Utter Insignificance, right? We're holding up the Flawless to protect the board. We're holding up the Utter to shut down somebody's commander or a key creature that might come in to hurt us. And then we get back here to our next turn. I think I'm going to take the card for sure off the black market. Again, we could take the treasure, but we're in one of those games where like really mana isn't really mattering for us. Not loving the amount of lands that I've drawn, so I'd probably go ahead and just crack this fetch just to try to shuffle. And we see like Fresh Start was next, so I'd probably just crack the fetch to shuffle just to see if we can get anything different. And then, hopefully we were up a fairy by playing the Utter during our opponent's turns, but we don't know that. right? I think otherwise, Estrids could have technically, if we wanted to, we could have blinked it and have it become a copy of Black Market just to draw more, right? That's an option that I didn't really think about, but I think is a pretty fair play, right? At this point, if we're not getting enough card draw, we do have a good amount of the reconnaissance missions and those type of cards, but if we're not seeing them, Estrids might make sense for us to bring it in as the copy of the connections, pay the extra life. We know we're going to gain life back with Alela, and keep drawing more cards. Otherwise, I think you just attack with your Vigilant Fairies, look to play with that other, and then on the next turn, I would do that. I'd blink it back in as a copy of Black Market, pay the 2 life with each to draw, and now we're in a completely different position than we were last turn. Here you have something like Coat of Arms, which is going to really process our deck, our board forward. There's the reconnaissance mission, just to really push our game plan forward. Seeing the reconnaissance, I mean, I guess we could probably have taken the treasure off one of them. Again, I'll just say that I took the draw, but I still think this is a great position. You play the reconnaissance to draw, right? Since we know we're going to be hitting with fairies in the air this turn. I've got 4 mana left, so unfortunately I missed out on taking one of those treasures for the Coat of Arms, but I'm not all that worried about it. I think getting the reconnaissance mission is going to be huge here because you're getting at least 4, right, card draws this turn, and maybe you hit yourself into something else that makes this even more worth it. There's the Soul Ring, so that helps a ton. If you think about it, I had 4 mana left, so that would then be 5 for the Coat of Arms, right? If I wanted to do that, or you could go into the One Ring, right, this turn to protect yourself for next turn, and then Coat of Arms is just brutal, right? Because you get the fairy there, and then on the Coat of Arms or the One Ring, you get the fairy there. So Coat of Arms is just going to be great next turn, having 7 fairies total. They're just going to start taking over the game with Vigilance, and then maybe you bring the Estrids back in as a copy of Intangible for the extra buff. And I think we've done more than enough. We have the Flawless to protect the board. You have the Deadly Rollick to try to shut something down if you need to. We will happily play those spells if we can, and I think in an Esper deck where you're expecting that type of removal and counterplay, we are playing Fierce as well, right? We just didn't get to see it this game, but I think I'm more than happy in this scenario. I would have loved to have seen another way to buff the fairies, something like Favorable Winds or something like that, but I think that's the one thing I'm going to try to look at when we update the deck next is how can we add more of those abilities in, because I worry that I don't have enough, at least as it sits right now. But let's go ahead and rock into playtest number 2 up to, I think, 14 at the moment. Thank you all for so much for coming in and watching. Let me know how you're doing in the chat. Let me know how you're doing this weekend. Did you enjoy your weekend? What are you looking forward to over the next week? Chat with me. I'd love to chat with you about it. But here we've got a 4-lander, 2 fetch lands, interestingly. I very rarely see 2 fetch lands in the same hand, but Roaming Throne is, of course, something you want to see. I always make the joke, it's the best X ever printed, and of course it's going to work really well here to help Alela double her triggers. Curiosity for that card draw. Again, we had to wait a couple times. We had to wait a couple turns last, hand, to get that reconnaissance mission. Here we see her in the Curiosity, and then Kaya's to protect Alela. But we'll crack one of those fetch lands and go for the tower just to get that started. I think this is just a turn 2 talisman, right? Work our way towards turn 3 Alela again. Solitary Confinement is a really interesting draw. It's one of those cards that if you could set yourself up with something like Enduring Curiosity or something that draws you cards when your fairies hit, it can really keep you alive, because preventing all damage would be dealt to you and giving you Shroud does really help stop a lot of people from dealing with you. And if we can make enough fairies to continue drawing, we're just in great shape. But I think it's just Alela here on 3. Turn 4 could get a little weird. So if I go Orzhov Signet, so whatever I go crack this Polluted Delta for, I can go 2 for the Signet and then Roaming Throne is my thought. I won't double up the Alela trigger for the Signet, but I think it's still worth doing because it's just going to immediately take off next turn, right? And I think it's worth paying that price this turn. I don't think I really have any other great... right, I already used my Triumphs. Well, I think we pay the 2 life. Like I said, go for the Signet. you get the fairy, and then remember, you will get the fairy on casting Roaming Throne because it is an artifact. So now we're doubling up Alela's triggers for the future. We've set up our board. Again, a board wipe would suck, but the point is, at least then we'd still have 6 mana to work with. And we can keep the barter going. Missed the land drop, which kind of stinks, but I think 6 mana is more than enough to work with. I think the Curiosity makes a ton of sense to me. I think I would just Ghost Form first just to be safe. That's 2 fairies, right, off of Alela's trigger. And then I would Curiosity for 2 more. Again, now we're going to get the card draw because we've got the 3 fairies in the air and Roaming Throne that can attack this turn. Note that Roaming Throne won't double up the Curiosity's trigger because obviously it's not a fairy. So we're only going to get 1 card draw piece, but I really honestly don't think we mind. We're probably guaranteed 3 hits, the 2 fairies and Alela. Roaming Throne, I'd say I probably wouldn't swing it unless I really think it can get itself in somewhere. Obviously, we want to protect Roaming Throne. Roaming Throne's the thing that I think is really going to make a difference, right, in the amount of triggers that go off. So my guess is we just draw 3 here. And there we go. There's our lands. Nykthos could be an option. Get the Sunken Ruins in just for another colored source. But we see Cathar's Crusade, beautiful. Cathar's Crusade, just like Coat of Arms, are one of those cards that the longer you have it out there, the worse it just gets for your opponents. I've seen Coat of Arms, Banner of Kinship, and Cathar's Crusade close so many games in this deck very quickly, especially right with the Roaming Throne out. And then, of course, the nice thing with the Kayas there is it's going to hopefully protect Alela from 1 piece of removal, right? If not multiple, depending on how it works out, but at least the 1, right, bringing it back. So here, playing the Sea of Clouds, 8 mana. I love the idea of the Cathar's Crusade. I almost feel like it's Cathar's plus Solitary Confinement. So Cathar's on cast, get the 2 fairies, right? Neither of them will trigger the confinement, or will trigger the Crusade. On the Solitary Confinement cast, there's the 2 fairies. Everything's going to get 2 counters. And now I just think we're in great shape. We have enough cards in our hand to pay for this confinement if we need to. We're going to potentially draw a ton of cards, right? 4 came in this turn, so that's 7 fairies that we have access to in the air. The 1/1s are 4/3s right now, 2 counters on them from the Crusade, and then 1 from Alela, so they're going to start attacking, right? And then I think that's probably good enough on that playtest. I think we're there. I mean, if somebody wipes the board, it stinks, but at least we have the mana to push ourselves back forward. We're going to get all this card draw, 6-7 cards, and I think we're just in good shape. I think for me, when I playtest Alela, most of the time I'm more focused on getting set up than I am about what happens when I have 7 fairies in the air, because I've noticed a lot of the times when you're playing a deck with flyers, you need to leverage the fact that you have flying and attack the right player at the right time, I guess, is my thought process. And that's something that you just got to think about and tactfully determine, right? If you have a flying player, attack them last unless you have to, right? And take advantage of your flying. Here on playtest number 3, we've got a 2-lander, but we do have Arcane Signet and a Talisman. So we're looking at, unfortunately, potentially Alela on turn 4, unless we draw another land. But we have a couple of great enchantments. You have Mirror Maid, come as a copy of any artifact or enchantment on the battlefield. You have Favorable Winds for the buff, and you have one of our removals in Eaten by Piranha. So I like this. I think it's a good start. Turn 1, we see Bolus's Citadel, a very interesting card. The hope here, right, is that you could gain some life with Alela so that you can spend it with a Citadel to go digging. There we see the confinement again. Interesting. Would have loved to have seen the land there. Unfortunately, we don't see it here. So this is one of those scenarios where we didn't get to see the land that would have made that a turn 3 Alela. So it's going to be a turn 4 Alela. I'm trying to decide if I just hit the Favorable Winds now, or do I take the turn off? I'm just trying to think of what makes the most sense. I guess I could leave up the 2 mana for the Piranhas. But either way, I don't get a Alela trigger. Right? I guess if you're worried about one of your opponents popping off, right, we leave the mana up for the Piranhas. Otherwise, I think we just dump the Favorable Winds in. And of course, we miss the land drop again. Alela comes in, get it down, get the party started. Of course, the nice thing about Favorable Winds is, a lot of these buff enchantments, right, is they're going to buff Alela as well. Alela does a great job of buffing your other tokens you make. So now on turn 5, 5 mana. I like the Mirror Maid as a copy of the Favorable Winds, +2/+2 now to all of our flyers. And then it leaves us 2 mana. I think obviously we leave up Fresh Start or Eaten by Piranhas. Alela can attack, at least get herself in, gain us some life back. And then just hold these up, for some removal on somebody else's thing. Mox Amber is great, going to give us access to another mana and make us another fairy. I think there's probably 2 lines we could take here. You could go the Bolas' Citadel route just to immediately start trying to play things off the top and try to go off here, right? Try to get more. Or you could leave up mana for the interaction. I kind of like Bolas' Citadel. Let's just see what we get. Orphane's Tower. So we can play lands from the top, and I don't believe we played a land this turn, so we could play that in tapped. And we hit no land on top, so there's all of our lands. I don't think that's bad at all. You still get the attacks with Alela. We're holding up mass removal in the Deluge. We're holding up. If we could find another way to draw, if we could find a way to draw cards, there's the confinement that could really help us out right in that scenario. But as we come to our next turn, it's not what I meant to do. Top card is Patchwork. So the reason I'm not playing this Flood Farm Verge, right, is I want to make sure that if I hit a land off the top, I can play it. So play the Banner, right? Get a fairy. All the fairies get +1/+1. Next card's a Dimir Signet. Let's play it, right? We don't mind paying the life here because we know that Alela should, in some sense, be able to get us it back. Right now, she has +3, so she's going to get us at least 3 life back this turn by attacking. There's the Marsh Flats. So we'll play the Marsh Flats from the top. There's the Mysticate from the top. Remember, we can crack this fetch land, though. Shuffle our library, which I think is the hope here, that we could shuffle it into another... Mystic Remora, okay, could be a little bit probably too late in the game for a Mystic Remora, but for 1 life for another fairy, it feels pretty worth it. And then Renewed Solidarity is a killer one here because we've made, 4 or 5 fairies this turn? Or I think 4. 1, 2, 3 this turn. So this is just going to lead to another fairy we're going to make at the end of turn. So we're going to make at least 4 fairies at the end of turn. We can keep going on the Raise the Palisade if we want to. I don't know that I'm as in on that just quite yet. I almost feel like Solitary Confinement could be a good idea with the Bolas' Citadel, with the rest of our regular mana, because we don't need to draw necessarily. We can just play things off the top, and we can always just get rid of the Confinement later. But, Confinement gets me another fairy, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5 more fairies we're getting on end step. And we just, we'll take the attack with the fairies we can. And then they're got that little bit extra buff with the Solidarity. And then, of course, on the end step, we then get that many more fairies because of the Solidarity. So somebody has to wipe the board now, right? And if somebody doesn't, then I think the game's just over. Probably, I would imagine, with this many fairies in the air. But obviously at turn 7 in bracket 3 gives a lot of people time to have that wipe. But if they have it, I don't think they mind. We really got a lot of mana, right, from that realm off the Bolas' Citadel. So we should be able to hopefully replay. And if somebody destroys the fairies, right, the nice part is you still have your enchantments sitting around unless somebody plays something like a Farewell, right, that you hopefully could then still rebuild. Let's go to Playtest 4 here. Keep it a 3-lander with a Talisman, so... hopefully right at turn 3, Alela. There's the Curiosity for the draw. Ethereal Armor can really help buff Alela, gain us some life back, and Whip of Erebos. We love to see Whip of Erebos. Lifelink is, of course, very useful. I think right away we'll just go crack that Polluted Delta. Getting that Raffine's Tower. Again, looking to go right into that turn 2 Talisman. Looking to go right into that turn 3 Alela. Then just keeping the party started. So we see... Meat Hook. Meat Hook's a ton of fun, whether you choose to use it offensively and have it come in and kill a bunch of your opponent's creatures, or we choose to use it later, right, to even kill our own creatures. It's a very interesting piece. My thought here is Ethereal Armor plus the Curiosity, because then I can draw at least 1 card this turn. Alela gets a little bit of a buff, and we can work into drawing some cards next turn, right, with our fairies. Since those fairies really weren't going to attack that turn, I don't feel the need to dump in Whip of Erebos there, since, right, Alela already has lifelink. But now my thought is, Orzhov Signet, that's 5 mana left. Just like my thought is just whip Remora. Attack, we have 3 fairies that should be attacked this turn, and Curiosity could attack as well, but I think we have a lot bigger guarantee to get in with these 3, right? And we're gaining the life right back because of the whip. I'm just not going to simulate the Remora. We probably end up drawing at least 1 card, I would imagine, but we'll just go from there. And then as we come back to our turn, this should be hopefully where we can start, again, taking our goal to turn the fairies we have into damage. And really all we're missing is a way to buff our whole board. Alela's getting bigger, right? For each enchantment we control. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So she's starting to get bigger. You know, you go Roaming Throne, get a fairy. 4 mana left. Signet 2 fairies. I guess we probably paid the upkeep on the Remora, so we'd only have 1 mana left, right? So do we do something different? No, let's do the Signet, because then, well, do you just hold up Counterspell instead? Try to protect the board. Again, just run through with the fairies again, draw a bunch of cards, and then maybe you leave removal or something like that up, right? Because we're drawing at least 4 or 5 cards right now. And then the hope right in those 4 or 5 cards is you start to draw more ways to either draw more cards or buff your board. And we see multiple ways to draw more cards here, and we just see more ways to make more fairies. And then, you know, we still have the board wipes of the things like Meat Hook. So not a bad one there. And I think playlists like that, or playtests like that are why I'm starting to feel like I don't have enough buffs. It's because I find, unfortunately, too many games I'm not drawing enough of those buffs, which makes me think that I need to do a better job at adding more of those buff enchantments to the deck. But this is why you playtest, right? This is why you do these things, so you start to understand where you see your trends heading. But let's do one more for Alela. Here we're keeping a 2-lander with the Urza's Saga. We got a Talisman, a Signet, 1 ring, the Banner, and then Utter Insignificance. So a great hand. I mean, Saga is going to help us go get a good amount, right? I think Saga is one of those cards that people either love or hate, and since the deck's not really as focused on caring about budget, it's fine. I realized I probably should have done this in the opposite order. The Sanctum comes in tapped here, so it probably would make more sense to do this so you could go into the Talisman, right? So that turn 2, you know, now you could go into Alela. Or turn 3, now we can go to Alela. That makes more sense. I didn't realize that until after I was done. But again, hey, that's what's the important thing about playtesting is so you see those things and you start to understand, especially with these Innistrad lands, right, when they come in tapped. So turn 4, I mean, Banner I think makes a ton of sense. Not only does it net us more mana, but obviously it makes another fairy. And my thought is the Signet. Philatopian says I usually have too many buffs. Yeah. No, and I think that was my fear, I guess I'll say, was that I have too many. But I think I'm starting to realize that I just don't have enough. Right? And I think that's good. It's good to me as a brewer, it's good to know that because then you can change it, right? And when you see that empirical data over the course of a few games, if you're like, man, I never am drawing them, maybe it's time to add more and make the deck better. Here, I think it's just loading up with the mana rocks, right? Make some more fairies. I realized Saga went off this turn. I'm thinking it's either Soul Ring or Opal. We'll just go with Soul Ring, I guess. So we technically could have gone deeper, right? Could have gone for something for 3 mana here. So we could have put the Soul Ring mana into the Signet for something like Utter Insignificance if we want to, but that's all right. The point is we come back to the next turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 mana. Robe of the Archmagi is a really fun card in this deck. Comes in for 3, attaches to Alela for 1, and you draw cards equal to her power, hopefully, because she should hopefully get in fairly unblocked into somebody. This could be a Banner turn, but I think it makes more sense to robe and attach. Leaves me with 3 mana, but I think I want the card draw here to see what we can get ourselves into. And that is a 3/4 Alela, right? So we would draw 3 cards as long as we definitely hit somebody. Okay, so there's the Confluence. right? There's something like the Remora that we could play just to get another fairy on board. We could have also gone for something like the Meat Hook if we wanted to, but I kind of go back and forth on whether I want to use Meat Hook offensively or just use it when you can use it, just because it at least deters your opponents from wiping your board, and it's an enchantment cast. Uh, Whether we pay for the Remora is probably negligible here. I probably would pay it, but 8 mana, having 8 mana left is still good. Banner feels great here. We've got a bunch of fairies. Fun thing about Banner is on cast, you're going to get the fairies. So you're always going to have one more than you have for the Banner, which is pretty fun. The One Ring obviously makes a ton of sense, right? Giving you the card draw and the protection. Banner is going to also draw me a ton of cards, right? Off of Alela hitting somebody. So if I were to play the Banner just right now, you'll get one on cast, so it's coming in with, 6 counters? So Alela's sitting at a 9/10 right now, which feels pretty good. I've got, 4 mana left? So I guess 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I don't know why I didn't think I had enough. So I guess you could have, played the One Ring first, obviously, right? Tap it to draw. And then go in and get your attacks, and we're going to draw a ton of cards off of Layla's trigger, which kind of stinks, but I mean, we happily want them, right, to continue to fill up our hand. And then we should just have open season next turn. We could get rid of the Remora. We're protected off the One Ring at least a little bit. And with a grip full of, 9, 10 cards that we drew, we should be able to, just have some fun. I think we got what we needed to get out of that one. It's a fairly standard play pattern. But again, I still feel like I need more of those buff enchantments. Like I said, that's one of the hopes for the next set of updates. Things like Rally the Ranks, Inspiring Leader for the tokens. Maybe looking into maybe another like copy enchantment to copy the ones you already have. And again, looking into a little more of the taxing our opponents for what they're trying to do. But let's get into the one I'm probably the more excited to cover tonight. And like I said at the start, we're still doing a little bit of preparation because we've already seen one new shrine from avatars. We know the deck's going to change, right? We're by asking the people in my life who have watched Avatar, because I'm not a huge Avatar fan in the sense that I haven't watched it, but I have a lot of friends who have. My understanding is that there could be 4 to 5 new shrines. A shrine for each of the different clans, right? And then they said they could do a 5th one as Aang's shrine, right? So I'm expecting 5. I think it would make sense for them to do a whole cycle, but I could see the argument, obviously, that they just do one for each of the clans, right? So either way, my expectation is to get at least 4, if not 5, new shrines. And we already saw, right, the lesson that goes and gets the shrine, right? So we already know we're getting a good amount of support there. So my thought for my process for Go-Shintai leading up to this is I want to try to leave 5 slots open, right, so to speak, for the new shrines, but just continue to get in around, right, the shrines that are already there. I do think that Southern Air Temple is really interesting, and what I think it's telling me, and this could be me probably reading a little bit too much into it, is if you notice that every other cycle of shrine is set up a similar way, right? So all of your Hondens go off on your upkeep, right? All your Sanctums go off on your pre-combat main phase. All your Go-Shintais are creatures that go off on your end step, right? So reading into the Air Temple, what I see is, it does something when it comes in, equal to the number of shrines you have, and then when another shrine comes in, it does something. Again, that could be a little bit reading into it. I feel more confident that the top part is probably going to happen more, that whenever it enters, do something equal to the number of shrines you control. But my hope is we get to see both of those lines of text on every new shrine we see. I think this is absolutely busted, and I don't understand how this is an uncommon. I think this temple is crazy, because with Go-Shintai making shrines that are creatures, I think this is going to pretty easily just become a Cathar's Crusade for shrines, and I think we would happily take that, considering 1, this is searchable off of Sanctum of All, right? And 2, it's shrine. which means on cast, Go-Shintai is going to give you another shrine, meaning that when you enter, you're going to get more counters, right? So, like, I think this is exactly everything that this deck wants. And so I'm very excited to see what the other 4 shrines, 3/4 shrines, are going to be, right? So, with that knowledge in mind, knowing that we know more shrines are coming, like I said, my hope is, or my goal is to start tinkering around those shrines that are coming. And again, leave some gap slots open of cards we know we want to take out for the new shrines right when they show up. Well, let's get into our playtest here. Keeping a 3-lander with Fabro Elder. So I think a lot of this hand would require one of my opponents to have white, obviously, to play the Fabro Elder, which if they do, then I would keep this hand. If not, I'm a little bit more reliant on going Presence into playing another enchantment, probably to draw a card, which you can here, right, with the Grim Guardian in the Presence. I'm going to assume, though, for the purpose of this playtest, that one of my opponents has white, so I can play the Elder. Shared purpose, Grim Guardian, losing life when enchantments come in. Great, since we're making shrine tokens when we cast shrines. And then Presence drawing us a card. So we see the Stonefangs, which is 2 mana. But I've pretty much always tried in this deck to not play a shrine until after Go-Shintai comes down, because you gain more value off the shrines once Go-Shintai's in, because you get more shrines off of them. Here I think it's Fabro Elder. I could see the argument for the Presence there. I just think that the Elder makes more sense. Now, this is where your decision making could come. Like, technically, I could go Grim Guardian. Now I have 3 colors, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 for Go-Shintai. Right? I could also just slam Go-Shintai, but the problem is then this is only 2 mana, and I don't have the black for the Stonefangs. So my thought is Grim Guardian, then Go-Shintai, right? 3 here and 1 off the mire. Everybody loses a life when Go-Shintai comes in, and everybody loses a life when the shrine comes in. Oh, it's on enter that the shrines come in. I don't think it matters with what I said about Southern Air Temple, but we can cross that bridge later. So again, 2 life loss here off the Grim Guardian. We're getting the shrines started, and I think this is great. Now is where we really want to start dumping our shrines in. Unfortunately, this Rebound Crag's going to come in tapped, because we didn't see any of our Triomes or a way to find our Triomes. But we still got 4 mana and then 3 mana off of the Fabro, right? Because we have 3 colors. Now, there's a lot of ways we could take this turn. Seeing something like Search of Glory means we could go get Sanctum of All, which is arguably our best shrine. It goes and finds our other shrines. We couldn't play Sanctum of All this turn, but we could set it up for next turn. If I do that, I have 4 mana. I could go, for something else, but I think I like the idea of Chantress's Presence. Everybody loses 1. And then I've got 4 mana. I kind of like the idea of the Shared Purpose that draws me a card. Gives me another shrine. Everybody loses 3 total this turn. And again, we're starting to build this shrine board up. Same color as Elder, unfortunately, so no extra mana off of this play. I'd really thought about Samut, like just going 4 and 6 into Samut. If I do that, I'd only have a single black left, and I just couldn't figure out what. Oh, we could have put the single black into the Stonefangs because you're reducing by the speed. I guess I already drew, so I can't really take that back. But I guess that line could have made more sense, right? You start your speed at 1, you're reducing your spells by 1, Sanctum's just 1 black, and then you have Samut at least getting started attacking to get your speed up, and it can really help you right on future turns reducing your spells. But hey, this is why you playtest, to see these situations, to understand your sequencing on these cards. Coming in the next turn, again, I'd really want Sanctum of All now, especially when you could start double triggering that Stonefangs, right? But how would I finesse it? So if I play the Search for Glory, I've got 2 mana, including a red. I'd need the blue, so I'd have to go 1, 2, 3. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I could get the Sanctum All in. I know, everybody has mixed opinions on tutors, but because of how important Sanctum All is to the deck, it's one of those cards that I think is well worth playing. Draws me a card off the cast, getting a couple life loss here. And now Sanctum of All is just in great shape, right? Because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shrines. So everything else is going to start going off twice. We've got all 5 of our colors. So Faber Elder is really tapping this up for some good mana. We used all of our mana that turn, but I think it's completely okay because Sanctum of All, I think at minimum, puts in work on its own. When you can put shrines beside it, it's great, right? But at minimum, it's going to start giving good work for us. And this is why I'm so excited for those new shrines, right? Because in this position, you just go get what shrine we want. If you untap with all your creatures here, you might go get that new Southern Air Temple. Come in, put 6 counters on each of your creatures right now because we have 6 shrines, and then Sanctum, and then you go to main phase, play a land, play the Stone Fangs, you get another one, right? There's just so many ways that we can, take it from there had we had that available. But here, my thought is Doomwake Giant. We draw a card off of the presence. This is now going to start adding removal for our opponent's creatures, right? -1/-1 whenever an enchantment comes in. And then including itself, right? So it's already -1/-1. The Stone Fangs is -2/-2. I just realized I never got I never got a shrine off of Sanctum of All. I'd probably go for the draw one at this point. One of our draw ones, just to draw some more cards, because I think that's probably what's gonna make the difference. Fruitful Harvest actually could be a pretty good thought here as well to get the mana. So that's, yeah, I mean, probably just more card draws. So we'll call it there because I think I kind of messed up my sequencing. But Terra is one of those cards I was interested to try out, but I think it's probably just one of those cards that comes out for one of the new shrines. I haven't loved Terra in any of the games that I've seen it in with the deck, but again, it's good to still keep that placeholder there, right, for the new shrines that are coming out. Remember, if you're in the chat, I'd love to speak with you. Throw some thoughts in the chat. Let's chat. But let's get into playtest number 2 here. Keep it a 2-lander, but we have the Arcane Signet. So this is a little bit weird. But you have Arcane Signet into the Decanter, into the Skyshroud Claims. This is a little bit of a weird hand, but you have the Siege for the haste. I think this gets there, and we're gonna have to probably start with that Deathcap Glade turn 1. Ooh. We could start with the Cemetery turn 1 now. We have to get one of the 2 of those in tapped, right? So turn 2, getting the Arcane Signet in. Turn 3, we see a Triumph. Okay. That's not exactly ideal, but it's fine. It can help us out with some of our other things. My thought is go into the Decanter. Now my thought is Go-Shintai. Make that shrine. I've got 2 mana left. I guess just get another shrine in. Leaves us an odd amount of mana left, but that's okay. Now that Rootbound Crag comes in untapped, so we've got 7 mana. My thought is Frostcliff plus the Fruitful Harvest. These guys now have haste, and we can attack if we want to, but 2 shrines are still a little iffy on me to want to just start absolutely going after our opponents. We leave 1 mana up for that Sanctum. Avatar definitely opens up the idea of making a Shintai deck for me. It'll depend on how much mana it adds to the theme before I'll commit. I'm trying to figure out in my head if I know which... Oh, you mean Go-Shintai. Okay. I think, to me, the 5 new shrines are enough. Because we just consistently keep getting artifact support. Like, I think this deck's gotten leagues better than when it first came out. I mean, and there's so many ways you want to go. If you want to go for, like, the Zur slash... what's the name of the card? The one that makes all of the... Did I just close out the stream? Gotta love it. Definitely just closed my window. Sorry about that, guys. So, yeah, because my thought process here is like, there's a couple different ways you could take Go-Shintai. Like, you can do the Zur, like, Starfield of Nyx, like, enchant your non-creature shrines into creatures and, like, go that route. That I think's really interesting. You could play more into, like, the Overlords and care more about, enchantments. I mean, you have things like Zur and other things like it that can just search for enchantments. I think there's a ton of ways you could take the deck. I've definitely tried to go, in some sense, into more this constellation slash eerie angle where you're caring about enchantments coming in to generate value. But when I say that, you've gotten so much more enchantment value, I mean, look at something like Yuna. Yuna makes all your shrines on your turn better, giving them to the Triumphal Lifelink, and you could start getting your shrines back that way, right? We have Yenna from Wilds of Eldraine, right, making copies of things, um, except it isn't legendary, so you can get copies of the shrines, right? There's a lot of ways I think to approach that idea. You have the Joda for them all being legendary, right? I think that's neither. I think you could see the point, which is that you can latch onto one angle, right? I think to me, it's the fact that they're all enchantments. We could just pay off the fact that we're all enchantments, especially since playing shrine equals getting shrine tokens. So that's where I kind of go for the constellation eerie angle. But I think there's a lot of ways to look at that one. So the fruitful harvest here is setting up more mana for next turn, and I think and I think you could just do that. This turn we see the search for glory, which is really great because I think you probably just go get Sanctum Vault again. You can get yourself some mana, so we could actually go Sanctum Vault plus the Sky Shroud Claim, and get ourselves not only Sanctum Vault but just more mana to use on the back end. This goes and gets up to 2 forests, so we're gonna go for our triomes, right? It does that, so we can just go, Ketri and Zagoth. It doesn't really matter, but the point is now we're just ramping up the mana. Get the shrine. I do believe Sanctum coming in would double the amount of shrines off of it. And again, I just think we're in good shape. Yeah, no cards in hand, but they do have haste for the purposes of Frostcliff Siege. And I mean, we can immediately go for a card draw Sanctum next turn with Sanctum Vault, and now we're getting the mana and the card draw. And that's one of those scenarios with the Shrines deck where you're just playing with absolute gas, right? You're in great shape. Playtest number 3 here, keeping a 5-lander, so we've got enough mana for Joda and for Go-Shintai. I think it makes sense just to get yourself started with the Triomes coming in tapped. I don't really see anything we're going to want to do in the first couple turns anyway. Turn 3, I think we're just sitting here as well. Gauntlet of Light is in here for its combo with Sanctum Weaver, allowing you to basically get infinite mana if you have enough enchantments, and that can help you in a lot of ways. Drawing cards if you have card draw. A couple different angles for that. Turn 5, I think I like just Joda. Unfortunately, these aren't legendary, but when you start to play all of your shrines, you're going to be triggering them with Joda, right? Which is where the ideal nature of that comes from. Turn 6, I mean, we can get 2 shrines in and kind of Joda cascade off of each of them. So we'll start with the Calm Waters. And there we go. We hit our first legend in Sithis. Again, a great legend to hit because that's going to draw us cards as well when we cast our enchantments. Cast the Sanctum, I'll draw first because we have a pretty low chance of hitting something really ideal here. I was going to say there's, I think, 1 Sanctum that exists with a mana value below it. So again, great turn, gained a life, drew a card, a couple more shrines, and the nice part is these shrines are a little bit harder to get rid of. We're going to draw more cards next turn, and I think we're in some really nice shape to keep the bar rolling. Well, there you go. Sterling Grove is another way to find Sanctum of All, but also protects all of our enchantments. It could also go get Sanctum Weaver if we wanted to do this Gauntlet of Light combo. But I think we just start with the Go-Shintai, right? Start with the, or sorry, Calm Waters would have drawn us 8. And then we got to pitch one, right? guess you could pitch a Triumph. I think we're probably long past that. Everybody's going to lose 8. Does that change my play? I don't think it does. I think we just go for the Hidden Cruelty and see what we get. We'll draw first. Because remember, this has to be legendary, unfortunately. So, again, would have been great to hit the Weaver, but we hit Zur, which is also great, because now you could, now we can animate those Sanctums. That's what I was talking about with that. And then actually, if I'm 100% honest, Dollmaker Shop might be perfect, because I have 3 mana at my disposal. You could either get you could get it in, or focus on trying to get something that's going to get you more mana next turn. I actually just realized Insidious would be enough to get the Porcelain Gallery side in if you just wanted to soup up all of your creatures. But again, Insidious would draw you. Porcelain Gallery would draw you. And then now all of our creatures are huge. They have lifelink and hexproof, right? Because of Zur. And I think we're just in a good spot. Again, this is one of those decks, to me, again, you're basically just trying to get all your best Enchantment Matters pieces in one deck, build the board state right that your opponents hopefully can't crack through. We'll do just one more playtest. My voice is starting to give out on me. We've been dealing with sickness all week this week. So I'm doing my best for you. I appreciate you guys coming through. Let me know any last opinions you have in the chat, and let's rock through one more. Even a 4-lander with the ley line, so that's pretty fun. Comes in, all the lands are every type. Each non-land permanent's all colors. So the nice part is we just want to get a Triumph in here on turn 1. Turn 2, I think we just get the other Triumph in, because my thought is now here on turn 3, Dryad play a second land. Go-Shintai, Shrine, play a land. I don't think we have anything else we can do this turn, right? Just the one land. The nice part about the ley line is now you don't have to pay the life to the City of Brass, right? But again, nothing we can do with that 1 mana. Here, I'm trying to think what makes the most sense. Life Web, I guess. Start getting the spirits, right? We net a couple spirits this turn. Now we're at 6 mana. Presence plus Stone Fangs is my thought. Draw a card off the Stone Fangs cast, and now we're starting to amass some Sanctums. Again, the Life's Web made us, 4 spirits this turn, and it's just going to keep making us more of these 1/1 spirits. You can look at them a bunch of ways. They're chump blockers, they're cheap attackers, however you want to look at them. I mean, the Frostcliff Siege makes a nice pairing here, right? Because then they have haste. But as you come back to the next turn, everybody's taking 1, 2, 6 off of the Stone Fangs. I'm only going to get Sithis in because it gives me extra draw. Then the Frostcliff, that's 2 draws, right? Because of the Sithis and the Enchantress's presence. And we got what, 1, 2. We got 6 more of those spirits this turn. So they're, we've got 10 of those hanging around. 3 mana left. I'm trying to think if it's Go-Shintai, or if it's the Go-Shintai, or if it's like the Dollmaker Shop. Go-Shintai makes some sense to me because when we draw, we could draw into a land, which we did. And then I think we have 2 mana left for the Dollmaker Shop to keep drawing. Again, my whole thought is just trying to get more cards in our hand to get more things onto the battlefield. And then you could take an attack with all those spirits, right? They're sitting there. They're all 2/1s ready to go. We'll end up getting a couple toy tokens. And then I think we're just in great shape. I don't think we have any mana left over for the Lost Wisdom, so we can't trigger that. But this next turn, you Doomwake Giant. We can get a Sanctum in. Stony Silence would shut down our own mana rocks if we had any, but we don't. So that's completely fine. Or you just go what? Calm Waters. I'm trying to think, we have 8 mana? I was trying to think, do you just turn on the Porcelain Gallery, or do you go My thought was Sanctum plus Stony Silence, and then, continue to hit him with all these just spirits we're making. But that's why I was thinking Porcelain Gallery, because we've got, what, probably 16 spirits if nobody's wiped the board, which is probably just going to be lethal. But again, that's what's really nice about the Honed In, and the, what is it, the white Go-Shintai that makes the spirits, because then you can kind of play into these these go-Y strategies. But I'd love to know, what do you think of the decks we talked about today? Again, I'm excited about Go-Shintai going into Avatar. It's a deck I think that has a lot of potential, and I'm just intrigued to see what those new shrines are going to be. But that's not the focus of the set coming up. The set coming up is Spider-Man, and I can't wait to talk about that. We've got lots of decks coming, lots of fun stuff coming, and hopefully some support for all your decks. I hope that there's cards in Spider-Man that you're excited for. We are going to be updating all of the main decks / test decks for the channel and doing episodes for them for Spider-Man. So look out those on the way. All the favorites are coming back. And probably starting next week. I think next week I'm going to try to do for Let's Play Test decks that are coming up that week, because I should have them done and ready. So we'll probably do, I don't know, my guess is like 5-color Spider-Man, and I'll pick one of the flip ones, because that's basically, as a Easter egg for anybody who's watching this late. That's what the week of 9/15 looks like it's going to be at the moment. It's going to be the 5-color Spider-Man, and then all of those flip commanders from the set. Those are what I'm going to start with. They've been pretty fun to brew with so far. So I'll probably do, I don't know. I think Miles is one of the ones that stands out to me the most. So maybe we'll do something like those two. We'll see. But again, my goal for probably starting next week is going to be to show off some of the commanders that's coming up on the channel. And then, we'll kind of go there. But thank y'all so much for watching this evening. I appreciate you coming out to hang out with me, and I will catch you on the next one.